I'm packing up my troubles in my old kit bag and smiling because soon my endless trips to Brussels and Strasbourg may be over. I'm going to choose a new suitcase, and it needs to be a big one because this is a one-way journey. We're leaving the EU and rejoining the world, and I'm going to do my damnedest to make it happen. On the EU question, Jeremy Corbyn has made more U-turns than a novice Uber driver. And most of the Tory MPs are waiting for Mr Cameron to come back with what I think is going to be a completely meaningless renegotiation, worth about as much as 2 bob and a bag of marbles. So pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. Those in the Westminster bubble, perhaps like ex-Chancellor Nigel Lawson, who were doing their absolute best to paint me out to be some sort of divisive figure, I think the real reason is they want to be the big cheeses in this referendum campaign. And frankly, what they ought to remember is that without UKIP, there wouldn't have been a referendum at all. For the first time this week, an opinion poll shows the Leave the EU side is in the lead. No surprise, really. We've had enough of limitless immigration. We've had enough of wasting billions of pounds every year. We've had enough of endless regulation. And anyway, who wants to live in a Europe dominated by the unsmiling Angela Merkel? I've spent 20 years working for this, and here it is, our referendum, our chance to leave the EU and take back control of our country. Thank you. Lovely, thank you very much. The yes side are mobilising, and for us to beat them, we're going to need a bit more than just Conservatives for Britain and a few ageing and frankly rather snobby Conservatives. We're going to need the left and right of politics to unite to win this referendum. I'm taking that positive message to anyone that will listen. I'm checking out of the EU. You coming with me?
Nigel Farage taking away his weekly wages from Sage and Brown, always paid in cash. Sage and Brown luggage shop in Piccadilly. This to our own little lost property here in Westminster. He joins us now. Now the outside campaign, they've come up a bit in the polls, probably I would suggest because of the migrant crisis and all these pictures. The referendum is still some way off though. You're still a long way. Some way from having it in the bag, aren't you?
Oh, good Lord, absolutely. But I mean, if you go back to May, June, just after the general election, the stay side was 15 to 20 points ahead quite consistently. And now it's pretty nip and tuck. So there's been a big change over the summer. I agree with you. I think the migrant crisis is a big part of this. And indeed, I personally believe that, you know, controlling our borders, choosing who could and should come to Britain will be the defining issue of this referendum.
But if that's not in the headlines, if these are not the pictures dominating our TV screens come the referendum, well, the polls could go the other way.
Yeah, but I think, you know, people now know that as a membership of the European Union means an open door to nearly 500 million people. I think that fact's been pretty well established.
You're leading the Labour campaign, Alan, to stay in. Do you sense the ground moving a bit against you?
Yes, well, the polls this week were the first. There's not actually. There's one out this morning that shows there's a lead, but it's greatly reduced. This is not in the bag at all. There's a long way to go here. And anyone who thinks there was a soft lead, the curious thing, I've mentioned this to Nigel before, is all through the rise of UKIP, people who are polled regularly on what they think about the EU is seen a steady rise. There was a 20-year high back in May. So that's been happening at the same time as UKIP have been politically successful. The campaign in the end is going to be about, I don't think it's going to be about poetry, it's going to be more about prose. It's going to be about people looking at the facts. And I believe most of the British people share my view, which is not that we are Europhiles in particular, not that we are crazy about institutions, any institutions, let alone European Union, or that it doesn't need improvement, or that we want the status quo. But on balance, all things taken into consideration, we're better off in the now.
We don't yet know when the referendum will be, but how do you read public opinion at the moment, Michael?
Well, I don't know. You know, we only have opinion polls, and opinion polls are very often wrong, and were very badly wrong last time. I think the circumstances for those who wish to leave could scarcely be more propitious. There's not only the failure over immigration, there's also the failure of the euro currency. And I think the euro currency is an enduring problem. The immigration one probably is as well. So the circumstances are propitious. I think the problem lies with Nigel. I think that there is not a single leadership for the Leave campaign. I think Nigel, although he denied it in his film a moment ago, is a divisive figure. I can't, I must admit, think of anybody better, but I think that that is the great danger, that those who want to leave will not find a leader in whom they can put trust. Because although Nigel got 4 million votes at the last election, 4 million votes is neither here nor there when you've got to get a majority of the British people.
Michael, the point is this. I think, you know, UKIP on its own cannot win this referendum. Agreed entirely. But we're not going to win this referendum without the input of UKIP. And what I've seen is a group of predominantly Conservatives in Westminster, snobby beyond belief, most of whom actually have no cut-through with the general public whatsoever, basically saying, leave it to us in Westminster. And when we finally make our minds up that we want to leave, because don't forget they've been sitting on the fence for the last 6 months, you know, we'll get on with it, and you just sort of stay at home. And actually that's why I've said I think the Leave.eu initiative of Aaron Banks's is really exciting and really different. He's put together a non-party political campaign that has now got nearly 200,000 registered supporters in the space of 6 weeks. And to me, to win this, the idea that Euroscepticism is a conservative centre-right thing is rubbish. There are stacks of Alan's voters who actually we need to get on our side.
But
So,
Nigel,
so what we need...
When your
hang on.
party is at war with its only member of parliament, I mean, this is...
So what?
But that's a horrible
So what?
way
Who
to begin.
cares?
You just look like a lot of infighting.
Even if that's true,
But it is
Even
true.
if that's true, it's irrelevant. And if you take, I mean, the big attempt in Tufton Street, the streets around here, is paint Nigel out to be divisive. The divisive figure today was Lord Lawson, who said, I won't work, I would not share a platform with UKIP, I would not share a platform with Leave.eu. I think everybody should come and join the Conservatives of Britain campaign. How does that work?
Let's depersonalise it.
You know.
I think you're a divisive figure. You think Nigel Lawson's a divisive figure. My point is that the people who want to get out of the European Union are divisive figures, and that I think is a real problem.
Actually, we're seeing the trade union movement wake up, and not surprising because of TTIP and other things that are now being debated. We have got to put together an umbrella that brings together the left and right of politics, and I think that can happen.
You seem, though, to have more fun knocking spots out of each other rather than knocking spots out of Alan Johnson.
I'm the one figure who said, I'll work with anybody. When Jeremy Corbyn appeared to perhaps hold sincere to his real view of 40 years, I said I'd happily share a platform. That didn't last very long, did it? You know, I'd happily share a platform with him. We are saying we'll work with anybody. It's a group of snobby Conservatives who won't work with us.
Stop talking about snobby Conservatives. You've got to make alliances with them.
Well, we've seen them. We'd love to. But
Nigel Lawson is the best brain in the Conservative Party. You really want him on side.
And how is Nigel Lawson going to get trade union members voting to leave the EU? In fact, he will probably be quite toxic as far as they're concerned. We have to get people from across the spectrum working on this.
But not Nigel.
If it's left, well, he's one of the better ones. If it's left...
You've just been knocking spots at him.
Well, no, I've said I'll work with anybody. He refuses...
not snobby Conservatives.
Well, he calls me toxic. He refused to share a campaign with me. We are the ones...
But you're just proving the point, aren't you, Nigel?
With anybody.
No, you're not. You're prepared to insult anybody.
And I'm sorry, you know, even in the middle of my speech... At the UKIP conference in Doncaster, we had the Tory machine briefing against...
Oh, Diddums, get over it. We're fighting over the future of the nation here. Get over it. Get over yourself.
Why don't you just think outside of Westminster? We will not win this referendum with snobby Conservatives in Westminster.
OK, but can I just point out that in the past couple of minutes, you've attacked snobby Conservatives, and you've attacked Nigel Lawson, and you've even attacked Michael Portillo, which is quite brave to do on this programme, all of whom are on your side. And you've not said a word against him,
no, but
Alan Johnson,
they don't want me to be
not on your side.
I'm sorry, Andrew. They don't
You're fighting
want me,
among each other.
They don't want me on their side. They don't want the entrepreneurs on
Do you want to
side.
lead the Out campaign?
I want an umbrella group to lead the Out campaign.
Do you want to lead that umbrella?
No, of course not. I'm not even a member of the umbrella.
So who should lead the umbrella?
I am supporting the Leave.eu umbrella, which will bring together people from the left and right of politics.
Right.
I've no intention of
But
leading
who should
this
lead
myself.
at the end of the day?
It doesn't matter.
On that final debate, when you're probably up
If
against
there is a final debate,
up against the Prime Minister, I assume, who'll be arguing to stay in, who should be there saying no, we should leave?
Well,
should it be you?
Well, I doubt there'll be a final debate. I can't see Mr. Cameron being very keen on that.
Just in case there was,
if
who
there
should it
was,
be?
I don't know, but it may well be somebody completely outside of politics.
Yeah.
Politicians in Westminster underestimate how unpopular they are out in the country.
Michael raised an interesting point. The referendum, the circumstances in which they take place always decide the outcome. And you have unprecedented problems in Europe at the moment. You've even had President Tusk of the European Council saying that the future of Europe's at stake here with the migrant crisis.
Yeah.
You've got columnists like Gideon Rachman in the Financial Times saying that this may be the end of Europe. So much about the end of Europe that the Daily Mail buys it from the Financial Times and reprints it this morning. These are not the best times for your side to be fighting a referendum.
Well, if Labour came out of their conference with one piece of unity last week, it was on Europe. Monday morning, yes. I mean, the unions are worried about TTIP, but the argument is you don't walk away from it. TTIP's going to be there. You get engaged and do it.
Mr.
They are
Corbyn
more worried.
They are more worried about.
They're more worried about
EU.
whether Cameron negotiates away.
But in his speech,
protection for work.
In his speech, Mr. Corbyn didn't even mention the European Union.
He did.
As a side, as a passing reference.
He mentioned about the importance of of a yes vote in Europe. That's our position.
Well, he mentioned the importance of a social Europe.
Yes vote. And on the issue that you just mentioned about the migrant crisis, I mean, Britain is in the perfect position. We are signed up to the Dublin Accord, but we're outside Schengen. And actually, if we were outside the European Union, the argument about migration as opposed to free movement, it would be much more difficult for us to protect our borders, particularly if we had to bring Dover back from Calais. There is a strong argument. And when Nigel says that the disagreement with Douglas Carswell, you can have disagreements, but
Douglas
it's over that fundamental issue.
No.
Douglas Carswell,
your
disagreement with Douglas Carswell is about people coming into...
No, Douglas Carswell wants to leave the EU. This referendum will stand or fall on whether we should have a country that is able to have an Australian-style point system that can choose
But that's not
who
what
comes
Douglas
to
Carswell
live, work and settle in Britain, and which he supports,
Douglas Carswell
which he
supports
supports even more
inward
strongly,
migration.
which he supports even more strongly than me.
Let's finish on just a very general point. Yes, two quick answers. When do you think the referendum will be and what will be the outcome, Alan?
This time next year, it will be to remain.
Michael?
I agree with both of those.
I suspect the autumn next year is right. I think there is now, for the first time, certainly in the last 40 years, a 50% chance of us getting a vote to leave.
Nigel Farage, thanks for being with us.